Honk, honk, motherfuckers. What's up? This is the Brew Party Podcast, episode number 66. We're getting a little sticky in this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Staying topical. Been topical as fuck the past 2 weeks, with the whole college football playoff thing with Brian McCardle. Go check out that episode out now on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Awesome conversation about the college football playoff expansion. On this episode of the Brew Party Podcast, I am joined by one of my very, very good podcasting friends, the host of Hitting for the Cycle from Review and Preview Sports, making, I think, his third appearance on the Brew Party Podcast. That's right, Hank Indictor joins the party tonight, and we kind of make sense on what the hell is going on in Major League Baseball. We have pitchers that are pissed off. They're going cold turkey. They can't even use sunscreen. They can't use pine tar. And then, of course, this Stubbs and Spider Tack that has caused a controversy in the MLB. This sticky, icky, if you know what I mean, the sticky substance that's causing a very, very high spin rate on the ball and may or may not be the cause of the higher strikeout percentages and lower batting averages that we are seeing. Awesome conversation with Hank. Not only do we talk about that, we talk about his Yankees, we talk about my Cardinals a little bit, and baseball just as a whole, how we think this is going to affect the game, what we like about it, what we dislike about it. Well, we really don't like anything about it at all. I shouldn't say what we like about it. I let Hank rip into Rob Manfred for a little bit. That's awesome. This is a great interview. I always love talking to Hank. He is literally a walking encyclopedia of sports. Like, before we even started the interview, he was talking to me about like the 50s and 60s, like he fucking 40 years before we were even born. And you would have think he was there. You would think he was there and watching it and saw all that stuff, recounting it like firsthand. So he is awesome. Just a very pure, genuine dude. Really fun to talk to. Really looking forward to you guys hearing this conversation. Episode 66. With me and Hank. Originally, I wanted to just call it Spider Tack, but I made a joke. Spider Tack. That's a little callback. I hope you guys understand what that's from. If you do not know what my shirt is, I had to mention this real quick. Gotta shout the fuck out to the best trivia team in the nation, the big screaming honkers, honk, honk. Former guest of this podcast, Robbie Fox, his trivia team for the Dozen Trivia with Barstool Sports, along with good old Coley Mick and Ben Mintz, celebrating the first ever inaugural championship in the Dozen Trivia tournament. I had to grab my merch, so make sure you go ahead and do the same. Robbie Fox, shout out to you, brother. So let's get into my little spiel here. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. You guys know the drill. At the Brew Party on both of those. We're really close to 300 followers. Trying to build it up. Trying to get there. On Facebook, at the Brew Party Podcast. We're super close to 400. No, 500. 400 likes, I think. Yes, 400 likes. I don't know. I'm not a numbers guy. That's been established on this podcast before. But here's something new. We are now on buymeacoffee.com. So go to buymeacoffee.com/thebrewparty, and you can buy us a beer. Support the show. It's another way to support the show. If you'd like, it's like $5 donations, we'll call it, where you could literally buy us a beer. So this next Busch Light that I drink could be paid for by you. I mean, obviously, I'm not expecting anybody to do this, but I thought it might be something cool. It's another way that people can support the show, and, who couldn't use a few extra bucks, especially during these times, because why not? So buymeacoffee.com/thebrewparty. Check us out. Help support the show. I want to say it's for a good cause, but it's literally just for me. So the beer I drink on this podcast could technically be free. But hit us up on buymeacoffee.com. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up on Facebook. Don't forget, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/thebrewparty. You can find all of our clips there, all of our episodes, all of our past live streams, and all of that good stuff. And then, of course, the podcast can be found on Apple, on Spotify, on Google, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, wherever you get your podcast. The Brew Party is there. If that's too many words, just go to www.thebrewparty.com. It's got all of our links to our social medias, our YouTube, all of our episodes, and links where to listen. Or you can just listen directly on that website. Join the party. We'd love to have you. Tell a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend. Let's make it a big shindig. Let's go Project X in this bitch. So before we get into the interview with Hank for episode 66, got my little notes here. We're going to talk some basketball, we're going to talk a little baseball, and we're going to talk some college football. I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible. So, the Suns are 2 wins away from going to the NBA Finals, folks. That's right, the Phoenix Suns, without Chris Paul, led by Devin Booker. Actually, scratch that. Led by Cam Payne. That's right, the Cam Payne game. 29 points, 9 assists for the guard. He got to the rim, was able to, finish with his left pretty effectively. Ty Lue, Clippers head coach, after the game says we had no answer for him. They had no answer for Cam Payne. Not Devin Booker, not DeAndre Ayton. Cam Payne was who they were worried about. I mean, speaking of Devin Booker, 20 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, on 5 of 16 shooting from the field. Struggled a little bit, wasn't really his game, but the Suns are able to pull out a 104-103 victory at home. DeAndre Ayton is the hero. 24 and 14 boards, the game winner, the Valley Oop, as they're dubbing it, ladies and gentlemen. A perfect inbounds pass. That's right, inbounds pass from Jay Crowder to a leaping DeAndre Ayton, who slams it home over Ivica Zubac of the Los Angeles Clippers to go ahead, essentially for the win. There was 0.9 seconds left on the clock when they threw the lob. The Scott Foster and the terrible, terrible referees in this game determined that there would be 0.7 seconds left on the clock. So let's set it up a little bit of what happened. So the Suns are controlling the game, for most of it. The Clippers are there, and they're not completely out of it at all. They keep kind of clawing their way back, led by Paul George. He finished with 26, 6, and 6. Big stinker, 1 of 8 from the three-point line. So 31 seconds left in the game. The Clippers take a 101-100 lead, their first lead since the third quarter, mid-third quarter. Paul George hits a layup. He immediately hits a 20-foot jumper. They go up 103-102 to respond to a Suns bucket. There's a little scuffle going down the court. Pat Bev and I think it was Booker kind of both touch the ball. It goes to a replay, one of the million fucking replays they had in the last 90 seconds of this game. The last 90 seconds of Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals took 33 minutes of real time. You cannot tell me that is good for the game. Come on, we're sitting here with our hands and our, sure, I guess it's better for suspense, but every 5 seconds, they had to go look at the monitor for something because of this under 2-minute rule where they can go look at everything, which I want everything to be right. You want things to be correct and nobody gets screwed over. But God damn it, it's really just fucks with the whole flow of the game if they're stopping and starting and stopping and starting every 10 seconds. I think that is something that Adam Silver needs to figure out. He was probably on the phone fucking trying to get the Clippers a W. So let's see. We have, what else did I want to bring up about this game? Oh, Paul George. So after the whole overturned call, it was an out of bounds. The ball went out of bounds. They originally said it was off of Pat Beverly. I think the Clippers challenged it, or they just went to a review and they overturned. Every player's turning around and going, review it, look at it. After literally every play in the last fucking 90 seconds of the game. Ridiculous. So it does get overturned. Immediately after on the inbounds play, Paul George gets called for a foul. Classic ball don't lie situation. Shouldn't have even been the Clippers ball in the first place. This, I don't want to say it would have sealed the game. It would have put them up 3, so the Suns definitely still could have tied it. But, it might have very well could have been 2 game-winning free throws. He's an 85% free throw shooter for his career. He misses them both, ladies and gentlemen. So 103-102. Clippers coming down the stretch, 8 seconds left when this happens, when he misses those 2 free throws. Clippers do a really good job on defense. They double Devin Booker. They're saying, you can't beat us, Book. It's got to be somebody else. He defers. He gives it to Miles Bridges. Or no, not Miles. It's Mikal Bridges, who had a great look in the corner for 3. He misses it, goes off of a Clipper, and out of bounds. So there's this whole long freaking review, and the Suns get the ball. The Crowder value, the perfect, crisp alley-oop pass. Ayton just completely destroys Zubats. They don't even know what's happening. They don't even know if the basket counts. The crowd's going crazy. Scott Foster's at the monitor trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, if they have to put any time back on the clock. But it was truly like a holy shit sports moment where you're like, that just fucking happened. Because people forget, like, it's not goaltending. You are allowed to throw a pass like that off an inbound. And the Suns took full advantage of that. DeAndre Ayton, the former number 1 overall pick, who's kind of been forgotten about, he's in that same draft as Luka Doncic, that same draft as Trae Young. And Ayton's kind of been an afterthought, and this has been a coming out party in the playoffs for him. He has been just as important to the Suns in these last few games as Devin Booker has. I mean, 24-14. I think the Suns have a bright future and a great chance at winning the NBA title this season. I think it's going to be tough because I think the Bucks are going to come out of the East, and this is going to be an awesome series, the small market series. Oh, but man, it obviously they have to take care of business against the Clippers. If anybody's going to come back from an 0-2 deficit, it is the Los Angeles Clippers, ladies and gentlemen. Their first 2 series of this playoffs, they've been down 0-2. And they won both series. So this is definitely not over, even without Kawhi Leonard, because you got to remember, the Suns do not have the Suns do not have Chris Paul still. So, I mean, it kind of evens out. Superstar for superstar. We'll see how the rest of this series goes. Goes back to LA on Thursday. But just crazy ending to that game that took felt like an hour and a half. Like I said, final 90 seconds of that game took 33 minutes. Something's got to be done about the stoppages and the reviews. And just, I don't think I can watch a Scott Foster officiated game anymore. I don't think it's good for my mental health or my well-being. So moving on from the NBA, I want to talk about 2 of the pitchers that Hank and I didn't really get to talk about because these things kind of went down while we were recording. So the pitchers are already not having it with these inspections by the umpires. The umpires are now inspecting each pitcher, I think, after each inning or after they are taken out of the game. Unless you're a closer, you are inspected before you start pitching. So they're getting, like, the opposing umpires can ask opposing managers can ask the umpires to go out and check these the pitchers, or the umpires can go out at their own discretion. So the Nationals are playing the Phillies tonight. Max Scherzer on the bump. Joe Girardi is trying to fuck with him. He actually thinks like Scherzer's got something on him. Because Scherzer was absolutely fucking up the Phillies lineup. So by the 4th inning, Girardi had requested 3, yes, ladies and gentlemen, 1, 2, 3 separate inspections on Scherzer, and by the last one, he was so done with it. He threw his hat, excuse my hair, takes his belt off, throws it down, throws his fucking glove, holds his hands up. Davey Martinez, his manager, comes out of the dugout. It's like, all right, this is enough, trying to stand up for his guy. Girardi's trying to come out of the dugout. So obviously they find nothing. Scherzer is a pretty stand-up dude. Like, he doesn't ever seem to need any of that kind of stuff. So he's not having it. It's just like, this was only the 4th inning. So I don't know if Girardi's just trying to get in his head. So after this whole thing, Scherzer gets back into it. I believe he struck out JT Realmuto to end the inning. As soon as the inning's over, the entire time he's walking to the dugout, he's fucking staring down Joe Girardi as he's walking. Like, eyes here, locked on, not fucking around. And as soon as he gets like to his dugout, he takes his hat and his glove and holds it up like he's ready for another inspection. Fucking Girardi, of course, like, tries to come out of his dugout and start chirping and start talking, like, basically, hey, you want to go? All right, yeah, you want to go? You want to fucking do this? My thoughts when I see this is, it's Girardi, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. All right?
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay.
Come on, dude. Like, Max Scherzer would fucking kick your old ass up and down the field and hang you from the fucking foul pole, dude. Get out of here. You were pissed off because he's one of the best pitchers in the league and he was fucking your lineup up and you decided, well, I'm going to accuse him of cheating. That's what this whole thing is going to fucking turn into, guys. Baseball is a joke right now. I don't want to spoil what we're going to get into in the interview. So the other guy I want to bring up, Girardi did get tossed after all that bullshit because, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. Sergio Romo, not to be outdone, the reliever for the A's, was getting checked. He straight up just threw his belt off and pulled his pants down. Honestly, it's hilarious. Like, we talked about Jacob DeGrom a little bit in this interview you'll hear later, but these guys are just laughing at the umpires. They're like, get the fuck out of here. Get out of my face. Like, that is what needs to keep happening. Keep making the MLB look like the absolute joke that it is, because I just don't know about this rule, guys. That's all. That's all I can say. So let's move on. So I want to give an update. So I talked earlier about last week's episode with Brian McCardle about the college football playoff expansion. They had a ruling today, so I was expecting it to be like a legit ruling or approval. They kind of pulled one over our eyes here. So the 11 presidents and chancellors of, I would assume, the conferences or universities or something, shows you how much I really fucking know about this, have approved the 12-team proposal to begin a summer review phase to determine its feasibility. So basically, this group of chancellors and presidents of different universities or whatever is moving it on now to be reviewed by the 10 FBS commissioners plus the Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick to see if they could really make this work and how feasible it is. So that is the update. So sometime in the summer, I guess we will get another update to see what the next step is, if the approval is coming, and what have you. So that's all I got. Let's get into this interview with the one and only Hank Indictor. Before we do, I'm going to remind you one more time, subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Like, rate, comment, review. Please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. We're trying to get up to 100. If we do, I say it every episode, we're going to get a special guest in here if I can get people to actually throw a rating on the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube, turn the notifications on. I'm just rambling at this point. So from Hitting for the Cycle, you can find that every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Review and Preview Facebook page. I love my guys over at Review and Preview. They do a lot of good work over there, and Hank is no exception to that. Really knowledgeable about the game of baseball. Super, super excited for you guys to hear this. He's, in his 20s, like in mid-20s, but he's like an old classic baseball head, and it's just like you don't see it a lot. So this is an awesome interview. Episode 66, Spider, Tack, featuring Hank Indictor from Hitting for the Cycle. This is the Brew Party Podcast. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, Brew Party Podcast, episode number 66. We are keeping it topical. Once again, look at me. Last week, CFP playoff expansion with the ruling is supposed to be coming out at some point today. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 22nd. I am joined, I think it's third time you've come on the actual podcast. We've done other collaborations, other live stream type stuff together, but it is my friend, the host of Hitting for the Cycle from Review and Preview Sports, the co-host of Big Blue Avenue, a walking sports encyclopedia, ladies and gentlemen, who is double fisting some dilly-dillies. It's Hank Indictor. He joins the Brew Party Podcast for episode number 66. Henry, how are we doing, my friend?
Andy, I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. How about you, my brother?
Dude, I'm great. I'm great. I'm so happy to have you here to kind of make some sense of what the hell is going on in Major League Baseball. So I thought no better person to do that with than you, someone that hosts their own baseball podcast, baseball show. So before we get into everything, let's talk a little bit about hitting for the cycle. I know the last time you were on the show, I think it was like right before you started it. So let's, now that you're kind of into it, you're a few episodes in, how's everything going? What has been your favorite thing about this season to cover on Hitting for the Cycle?
Oh my gosh, there's been a lot of crazy moments that have happened. I think covering that Dodgers Padres series was a lot of fun because that was really the one series I got to cover in depth because it involved two of the biggest personalities in baseball. I'm of course talking about Trevor Bauer and Fernando Tatis. How could you not love Fernando Tatis hitting that home run and doing the eye cover celebration as he's rounding first? And then Trevor Bauer, rather than deciding to retaliate and throw at him, he's like, hey, it's cool. This baseball needs more personalities like that. And Trevor Bauer, I'm going to be honest, he was a guy I was kind of indifferent about at the beginning, but then the more I really got to see him, the more I really got to sort of know his personality. I still think he's a little bit of a wacko and out there, but I think he still knows what the state of baseball is like. And the more I see, I think he's a guy that wants to improve the game. He's slowly kind of gained my respect. I'm not going to lie. So yeah. I think that series was fun. Covering my team, the Yankees, has been fun, and talking about them, even though they've kind of been hit or miss up and down this season. But, it is what it is. And then even covering Jacob DeGrom, I know he pitches for the team on the other side of New York, but the fact of the matter is he is having a season like no other. 0.50 ERA. Dude, that's Bob Gibson's numbers. Look at 1968 Bob Gibson. That guy posted a 1.12 ERA. I'm not going to say it's different, obviously, because Gibson pitched in a different era than DeGrom. But if the closest I've seen to a really dominant season, it's got to be Jacob DeGrom, and that says something. Considering I've seen Max Scherzer have dominant seasons, and Clayton Kershaw and Justin Verlander, to name a few, and even when I was younger, Pedro had a few dominant seasons when he was with the Red Sox.
If DeGrom is able to finish the year with a sub-1 ERA, or let's say even with this 0.50 ERA, would that be the best season from a pitcher in Major League Baseball history?
Yeah, probably. I think really the only season that could really top it, like I was telling you earlier, Bob Gibson. And the only reason I say that, because not only was his ERA so good, he pitched at a time where you didn't take pitchers out of games. When they were going well, you just let them finish.
You never took Bob Gibson out of the game because he will tell you to fuck off and go sit right back down.
Yeah, that I was just getting my fun fact. He pitched 34 out of a possible 38 complete games in the starts that he had. And he was never removed in the middle of an inning. Every time that he was taken out of a game, it was for a pinch hitter. That season. I'm not exaggerating. That's how good his 68 season was.
Well, my favorite Bob Gibson story is, well, I'm sure I've told it on this podcast before. It's because Bob Gibson was my stepdad's favorite player, or one of them for sure. And he told me, so he walked a guy or two in a row, and his catcher tries to come out for a mound visit, and he gets probably halfway out to the mound, and he goes, "Have you ever pitched before?" The catcher's like, "No." He goes, "Get the fuck back behind the plate." So Gibson is a legend. He never took any shit. But if this season we're going to do, let's just do this quick DeGrom stuff now. If DeGrom, finishes this out, where does this cement his legacy all time as a pitcher? I mean, not just this season, but himself as a player, as a pitcher. Where does this cement himself?
Easily top 5. Easily. And I don't really like arguing one pitcher is better than another. I know generally speaking, I'll say so-and-so is the GOAT or so-and-so is not. But if I'm being really honest with you, I'm not the biggest fan of the GOAT arguments, because at the end of the day, it's really not fair, because when you're saying something great about one pitcher, I feel like I'm minimizing the greatness of all the others. And if you really look at the history of Major League Baseball, there's been so many incredible starting pitchers. And again, I don't care if he's pitching for that other New York team in Queens. Jacob DeGrom is absolutely unreal. And every now and then when I have a chance and like he's on the mound, I'll take a look at that game because at the end of the day, I'm a baseball fan too, not just a Yankee fan.
Mm-hmm. He has more RBIs than earned runs allowed right now. 6 RBIs to 4 earned runs, I believe, all year. Just absolutely insane. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to see anything like this again, maybe until next year when he's back on the bump. So let's talk about what I brought you here for. So starting yesterday, foreign substance ban in the MLB. It's been a hot topic the past few weeks. It's kind of something that has just been kind of like you look the other way. You kind of almost every pitcher is doing this to a certain extent, using some type of sticky substance or whatever you want to call it to, affect the spin rate, get them more grip on the baseball. More grip equals more spin. That's why we see a lot of guys are throwing these 4-seam fastballs rather than sinkers these days because they can get that movement, that rise on the fastball with just that little more grip. So let's just get your thoughts. What this whole saga, before I get into, kind of what each little rule I have written down here is, your thoughts about how this has played out so far.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I really think MLB is making the whole sticky stuff, I guess you could call it spider tack gate or whatever you want it, a bigger deal than it really is. I mean, look, pitchers putting stuff pitchers putting stuff or using stuff to try to get a better grip or like any sort of stuff to like help themselves throw has been a common thing in baseball for pretty much as long as the game has been invented. No, like there have been plenty of guys will touch the rosin bag or plenty of guys will put on sunscreen. It is what it is. And like plenty of them will also put stuff on their hands to try to get a better grip on the baseball. And you know what? I have no problem with that. It's like totally fine. Where I have an issue is if players or pitchers will deliberately try to slobber some like spit on the baseball a la Gaylord Perry, or if they'll try to like deliberately put goop on the ball. Like that's where I have an issue. Cause like the rules specifically say you're not allowed to like get up and doctor a baseball, So I think the fact that and make no mistake, the idea of what Manfred is doing behind this rule, I sort of get because I see that he wants to level the playing field. Here's where I have an issue. You're enforcing this rule like now. Why do it like late May, early June, like in the middle of the season? Why not just like go through a whole off season, give pitchers time to like adapt to the rules as opposed to like springing it upon them? I think that sounds like someone who's like trying to make up stuff as he's going along and like make another thing into too big of a scandal than it really is. And what do you expect? Commissioners handling scandals, whether there really are a scandal or not, very poorly. That's just been way too common. And it's not just a Manfred problem. Look at Bud Selig with the steroid stuff.
Oh, yeah. So let's go through a little bit of like what is kind of going on starting Monday. So pitchers will be inspected by the umpires between innings and or when they exit the game. Unless they're a closer, the closers will be inspected when they are entered into the game. The article I read was funny. It made me laugh. It said to avoid any awkward walk-off situations because everybody knows every closer's got a fist pump or some type of celebration when they hit that third strikeout to end a game. Could not even imagine. Like let's just say Craig Kimbrell at Wrigley Field. You know how nuts they get like when they're already standing up. Yeah, they're already standing up clapping before, and he's there.
Whatever that is.
Whatever it is, throws it in there. Yeah. Everybody's they're starting the Go Cubs Go or whatever, that fucking awful song. The umpire's like, no, hold on, wait, check. I think you got something on your cap. Like, fucking talk about a boner killer. So closers will be inspected before, so they're going to be inspecting things like their hat, their glove, their belt, basically just kind of look them over, look them up and down. And then they're allowed to look at any other part of their uniform if they deem it suspicious, which that was a word that kept coming up. If they think it's suspicious. So basically My thing is, like, what if this umpire already has kind of like a personal vendetta with, let's say, a manager or a pitcher that they've been known to kind of get into it with? If they don't even, they know there's nothing there, but they're just trying to like prove a point. If anybody is caught with sticky stuff or whatever you want to call it, it's immediate ejection from the game, 10-game suspension without pay. Your team is not allowed to replace you on the roster. I don't know, Hank. Like, so they're making the umpires do this. The league wants the umpires to enforce this. Do you think they're using the umpires kind of as like a scapegoat? Because you know the umpires are going to be the ones that are going to get shit from the coaches already, from the fans, from the players. And while really they're just acting as a mediator here, they're just enforcing what the league front office is telling them.
You know, I feel like it's a little bit of both. I feel like at the end of the day, I don't know if it's so much that it's about the umpires. I think really it's more about Rob Manfred trying to like create an unnecessary scandal, or just trying to create a little too much control than he really needs to be. But I do think that that what he's doing with the umpires and maybe putting them in its position as sort of a scapegoat, I think that's probably only one of the many roots of this problem, if I'm like being dead honest. Because like I said, there's a lot of ways that they're going about this the wrong way, and having umpires in that position where like they could be scapegoated, made out of scapegoats to prove a point, that's not good. And then to put the pitchers in a position where they have to all of a sudden just getting like looked at now, when, again, as I've said, like pitchers putting like using stuff like to go on the mound, it's extremely common. I don't know what to say, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. How much of an impact do you think this will have, or like how quickly do you think this will have an impact on the game? Obviously, we talked before the recording started about Jacob DeGrom and him getting checked and basically laughing in the umpires' faces. I actually have that video pulled up. I want to share it with you just because it's so funny not to. It is so funny not to. Oh, I thought I had it. Maybe I don't. Never mind. I had it on another browser and it is not letting me.
Hey, I hear you. Technology can be.
It is not letting me pull up the share screen on that one. Anyway, like, what do you think? It's just a smoke screen? Do you think this is just kind of a move to get the heat off of Manfred's ass?
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely is, because, like I said, it's gonna deflect the blame away from like him, and you're gonna see a lot of people revolting against the umpires. And like, the more this really becomes much of a thing over the course of a season, there's gonna be a whole revolt led by somebody. Somebody's gonna have an outspoken opinion about it, possibly Trevor Bauer, knowing him. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So here, if you can see it. He's laughing in their faces.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. That's
hats off. He's like, "Are you serious? Are you fucking serious?" Look at that. Like, the best pitcher in the game right now. Like, do you see these checks being a problem? Like, do you see, like, there's no way every umpire it's going to be. I just don't see it being uniform. I don't see it being consistent with every single umpire. I just feel like there's just too much just room for mistakes to happen here. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like some might let it sweep under the rug because, again, maybe even the umpires aren't necessarily going to agree with what Manfred's really doing and his real motive, and some will probably, you never know, they might have the ego to want to like check pitchers or do it just for the sake of checking them and trying to prove a point or whatnot. It's a double-edged sword, and there's really no there's really no good thing that can come out of this, if I'm being honest.
Right. So I want to jump back to something you kind of brought up in your first little spiel. So why do this now? It's 2 months into the year. In the article I read from ESPN, they said they wanted to collect data before they made any moves, and strikeouts are up by a lot. Batting averages are down by a lot. We know what happened, the past couple years where there was the allegations of the balls being juiced for more home runs. I would say that more home runs, more long balls equals more highlights, maybe more eyes on the sport. Do you think the MLB is trying to overcorrect here, and they are worried that people don't really give a fuck about no hitters and pitchers duels, because we did see this year 8 no hitters already, which was on pace to break the record and have the most in a year?
I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that. And here's the thing. I'm one of those old school fans that doesn't really see the no-hitters meaning the meaning of a no-hitter decreasing just because it's been too common. I think no-hitters are actually fun. And I'm not just saying that because one of my own pitchers did it this year. I legitimately enjoy seeing a pitcher go like all 9 innings. And considering it hasn't been too common up until this year, it's pretty cool. However, with that being said, when I think about your question, like MLB trying to overcorrect themselves, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, hey, look, there's a reason people use the common cliche chicks dig the long ball, like home runs are one of the most exciting things about baseball. I mean, look at the 98 home run race, for an example. It brought baseball back. Now, say what you want about what McGuire and Sosa did and later Barry Bonds, but it is a known fact that home runs are like a fun part of the game. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy home runs too. I'm just one of those old school fans that enjoys like every single aspect of the game, However, in my honest opinion, you want to know how Rob Manfred could have really avoided this whole problem?
Mm-hmm.
Just use a normal fucking baseball the whole year. No?
Right. Exactly.
Normal baseball. Why did you even have to change the balls in the first place? Like, just use a normal ball in a normal playing field. No reason to fix what's not broken.
So I will say, like, from something I've read, which this speaks to your point of just using normal baseball, a lot of these pitchers are using these substances, whatever they are. I keep saying substances, spider tack, which I think I'm going to call the episode Spider Tack. Spider Tack.
White home run, 1-0.
Oh, live update on the podcast. So whatever they're using, rubbing their hands, they say the surfaces of these baseballs are so inconsistent, and they're becoming increasingly harder and harder for these pitchers to grip. So some of these guys are just using these substances just to give themselves a regular chance to make it seem like a normal baseball. At least in my opinion, from what I've read. So I don't know. I think you bring up a good point though. Why not? Why can't it just be normal? Why can't everything just be a level playing field? So
having this debate in the first place.
Exactly. So why not wait until the off season to make this announcement or make this rule? Why not give the pitchers time to adjust and not make them go literally cold turkey? Like you're making them fucking quit smoking cigarettes like in a week. Like why do you think they have to make this announcement in the middle of the season?
Because like I said, I don't even know if it's so much about wanting a level playing field. I think it's all about ego, power, money making, and overthinking a problem that maybe isn't as much of a problem as people make it out to be at the end of the day. That's probably my full summing up of the whole thing. As there's a drive into left field by Luke Voigt that will be gone. That would make it a 1-0 lead for the Yankees. Sorry, I wanted to do a better way of giving you that.
Well, Hank. Oh, Hank. That was great. That was great. So I want to be like, I want to have more questions about, like why wouldn't they at least warn the pitchers before this season started, or like do it at the beginning of the year? But I think your stance is it's just Manfred just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
And it's not even just that. He's making stuff up as he's going along. Because as I said, sunscreen's being banned. Using the rosin bag is being frowned upon.
We got to talk about the sunscreen for a second, because that is the craziest thing to me. How can you tell a person they're not allowed to fucking protect themselves from the sun? I'm going to bring up the Cubs again because they play more day games than anybody. Like, how are you supposed to tell those players they're not allowed to fucking just go like this? There is spray on sunscreen that's not really going to affect too much. I don't know, man. It's just... And especially for the teams that play in the South, like St. Louis, it gets hot as shit. Most of the Texas teams, they do have the roof over, so they can kind of correct that. Or what about the California teams? It gets pretty hot out there, or just anywhere. Right. It's that meme. Right. It's imagine thinking you're tougher than the sun, the fucking sun.
No, that's a good point. I think that's another thing that they're just, making up this as they've gone along. And last I've heard, I don't really know of too many pitchers that's actually used sunscreen as a method of trying to doctor the ball. No,
exactly.
Or at least as far as I know, no pitcher that I've heard of has ever gotten busted for putting sunscreen on the ball. Let me give you the biggest examples of pitchers cheating that I know of. Obviously, I've got a few Yankees in there. I remember Michael Pineda had stuff on his. He had stuff on his neck, and he put it on the ball, which was why he would put it on his neck. I don't really get, but it obviously
that's not even a natural movement to do.
He literally put
it on the mound, right? What? That'd be so obvious. Pineda, he seems to be rubbing his neck a lot. Put it right here. You put it right here on your palm. Or I gotta say, as a Cardinals fan, there was that controversy last year. Molina had the ball stuck to his chest protector.
Oh, gosh, I remember that.
Where everybody's.
I remember John Lester used stuff. I think he had stuff on his arm once. I remember. I think he got away with that. And then Clay Buchholz had that green stuff. I think, again, this was the same year. I think it was either 2012 or 2013 with the Red Sox. He had this weird green stuff that he put in his glove that obviously he was meant to doctor the ball. And then, of course, you have the most famous known cheater with using the substances was Gaylord Perry, who would spit on the ball and then even wrote a memoir called Me and the Spitter, and he didn't actually get kicked out of a game for doing so until the 80s. So it's pretty common seeing pitchers use that stuff or try to get an edge. But I think I'm saying is they're overdoing it.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the backlash from the pitchers. Tyler Glasnow, the ace of the Rays, got hurt in his last start. And he said it is from not using anything to help his grip or anything. What do you think about those comments? Do you think that's true? Or do you think that's kind of a cop-out?
I think that's a cop-out. Okay, first of all, I get that he's frustrated being injured, not being able to contribute like every pitcher is. I don't think any pitcher wants to get surgery thinking, oh, I want to miss so much time. No, that's not how pitchers operate. But to say that the new rules have to do with it, no, come on, man. I think that's just something he's saying, and it's going to make him look really bad. I think that's a very odd cop out because, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know any pitcher whose reason for having to go under the knife for Tommy John surgery has had to do with some sort of substance problem with the baseball or lack thereof.
So after his start, he was diagnosed with a partially torn ulnar collateral ligament and a flexor tendon strain. Glasnow said in advance of the MLB's initiative, he did away with using sunscreen, the only foreign substance he said he has ever used, 2 starts ago, and felt sore the next day due to needing to adjust his grips. He did the same in Monday's outing against the Chicago White Sox and then felt something pop in his arm. I switched my fastball grip and my curveball grip, and animated Glasnow said on a video conference with reporters. I had to put my fastball deeper into my hand and grip it way harder. Instead of holding my curveball at the tip of my fingers, I had to dig it deeper into my hand. I'm choking the shit out of all of my pitches. Those are quotes from his post-game interview in an article by Jesse Rogers on ESPN. So shout out to Jesse Rogers for putting those in word form. So those are some pretty strong comments. I'm choking the shit out of all of my pitches. That seems like it could definitely have an effect on your arm if you are having to, like he said, he's basically palming the ball, it feels like, instead of, holding it with his fingertips. After hearing that, does that change your mind at all?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, again,
I'm not expecting it to. I'm not.
Who knows? Maybe there is some merit to what he's saying. I mean, look, pitchers are going to throw the ball pretty hard regardless. So
right.
He might have some point, but then again, I don't really know what's going on. I have no idea what he's doing behind closed doors. I have no access to the Tampa Bay Rays locker room. But however, with that being said, lots of pitchers do hard throwing motions with their arms. Like,
right.
I can't tell you how many great pitchers we've seen, or at least promising pitchers with great stuff we've seen, end up having to go under a knife eventually, because pitching is one of the most violent motions a guy can do to his arm. Like, I've seen really promising careers end because of Tommy John surgery, or at least get hurt because of it.
Right.
And I've seen pitchers really ruin their arm strength because they had to repeatedly throw the ball so hard. It's not something, substance or not, it's not something that's easy on the arm anyways. So as much as you want to sympathize for Glasnow, again, UCL injuries are common. It's not like I can just immediately point to sticky stuff and say, oh, hey, that's why he's under the knife.
Right. Since you are a Yankee guy, we got to ask about this. Gerrit Cole's comments were not great. Kind of maybe a PR 101 segment, what Gerrit Cole should have said. What did you think about that, his press conference? It was kind of awkward.
He was in a tough spot because obviously, I'm playing devil's advocate with you for a little bit because we know he's in a tough spot. He's one of the best pitchers in the league. They're going to put him on the spot like that. With that having been said, how he handled that question was probably the same way in 5th or 6th grade I would handle a question from my math teacher when she asked me if I did the homework and I didn't. I would look at her funny. I would laugh a little nervously and say a kind of wishy-washy answer. And Gerrit Cole said something along the lines of, I cannot give you a definitive answer, but I can't tell you there wasn't really any substance. It was like, okay. I get they're putting you in a spot, but you either did it or you didn't. That was and don't get me wrong. I love Gerrit Cole. I love watching him every 5th day. We haven't had an ace like him in a long time. Not too long. See Sabathia, but you get my point.
Right.
We've needed a pitcher like him in the worst way possible for a long time. But for him to say that during the press conference, that was pretty embarrassing. I'm not going to deny that.
So for anybody that didn't hear or didn't see the question, he was at a press conference, pretty much was blatantly asked, have you ever used foreign substances? There was kind of a long pause, and I have the quote here. I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest. There are customs and practices that have been passed down from older players to younger players, from past generation players to this generation players. I think there are some things that are certainly out of bounds in that regard, and I've stood pretty firm in terms of that, in terms of the communication between our peers and whatnot. Again, like I mentioned earlier, this is important to a lot of people that love the game, including the players in this room, the fans, including teams. If MLB wants to legislate some more stuff, that's a conversation we can have, because ultimately we should all be pulling in the same direction. So, I mean, the back half of that quote was pretty much whatever. It's I don't know quite how to answer that, to be honest. Yeah. And then there are customs and practices that have been passed down. It's okay, yeah, you're definitely using something. I will say Okay, I do want to shout out. That was from an article from CBS. Want to give credit where credit is due when I use other people's work.
That's fair.
I want to say, so other pitchers have been asked, and they kind of said they were surprised about the crackdown of everything because it seems like sunscreen and pine tar are pretty much a common practice or like kind of like universally used. It's more so the spider tack and the palm grip or whatever, the super sicky stuff that they're really talking about. But it seems like the pitchers are unhappy for sure. Hitters, on the other hand, seem like they're okay with it.
Yeah, no, and again, you can see why. I don't think there would be as much of a backlash if MLB had strictly said, okay, you can't use spider tack, but had they forget the fact that they like disallowed other stuff. If the MLB had just said, oh, okay, hey, don't use the spider tack, okay, that's not okay, that's cheating, I don't think there'd be as much backlash. Or maybe there would, but like not to the extent that we're getting right now. You know what I'm saying? Because like spider tack, from what I've looked at, is something that's seems to be like a really powerful substance. And like if a pitcher used that and like doctored a baseball with it, then yeah, again, it pretty much would be a form of cheating because obviously you look at how pitchers like doctor baseballs in the past, like it makes balls go at like a certain speed that like you wouldn't see if they had thrown it like in a normal way, you know?
Do you like what exactly is spider tack? Do you know, like off the top of your head? Is it specifically for like baseballs, or is this like something else that is used in like another realm of things that like pitchers have kind of found out about?
You know, to be honest, it's kind of a new thing that I'm really starting to learn about. I just think I just think of it as like this really, really sticky substance that apparently seems to be giving a lot of pitchers advantages. Like, I'll probably know more about this substance as this whole thing goes along, like over the course of the season. But like I said, I just think of it as like a really sticky substance that gives advantage to pitchers, for better or for worse.
So, do you think this is the MLB is kind of doing this to themselves, making this a bigger deal than it needs to be, kind of blowing things out of proportion almost? So I want to jump back. Let's talk about, or okay, we don't really have to talk about, but I'm going to bring this up. What they did in the steroid era. Right. Where, you know, it wasn't just Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, fucking Jason Giambi, what have you. Everybody was fucking using something at that point. But
yeah,
they like
75%.
But they like to pick and choose. That they wait until it's so much of a problem that it becomes a scandal, and then they decide to punish, you know, 2 or 3 guys, make a couple people scapegoats here. Do you think this is going to be something similar here with this whole foreign substance shit, where they're going to throw a couple pitchers out into the forefront and kind of fuck them over?
You know, knowing the similarities that I see to Manfred with Bud Selig, it wouldn't really shock me. And especially because we know this is the same guy who pretty much let the Astros like get swept under the rug, or at least tried to sweep what the Astros did under the rug, and then do nothing more than like slap them on the wrist after the whole spying and the trash can scandal. Like, you know, I can definitely see it turning into something very, very ugly. And, you know, again, it's not going to end well. And much like the steroid era, like, you know, this is another scandal that Rob Manfred is going to end up botching horribly. And I'm really, I cringe at what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think you'll see guys maybe going to the Supreme Court over these foreign sub. No, like, I didn't think you were. I didn't think you were at all. But that was the point I was going to bring up. I don't think it's going to get to the level that, you know, that steroids did. But I think you have to like make the similarity there. Like you said, like 75% of dudes were using it. Probably say 75% or more of pitchers were using something, whether it be the super sticky fucking spider tack shit or whether it be, sunscreen, pine tar, what have you. I don't know, man. Where do you think baseball is headed? Do you think, I mean, obviously I don't think this is good for the game. As far as, growing the game and stuff like that, how do you think this affects that? Do you think this hurts viewership? Do you think it helps viewership? What's your opinion?
Oh, I think it hurts viewership because, I mean, you can say what you want about the whole steroid scandal, and you could say what you want about the Astros scandal, and make no mistake, I'm not condoning anything that those guys did, especially not the Astros, but at the end of the day, as much as I want to shame a lot of what those players did, the MLB really never had a clear view of who was how to view these guys. Like 1 minute they remember Sosa and McGuire were heroes at one point, and the MLB treated them as such. And then all of a sudden they just started casting them out as villains. It's where are we supposed to look at them? I think they're trying to cloud the way people view a lot of these pitchers, and it's, if you really think long and hard about it, it might be a big reason as to why some people say the MLB is declining in popularity. Now, again, I'm sure there will be a way that MLB can fix stuff, but the way that Manfred handles stuff, it's literally almost the same, if not worse, than Bud Selig. I don't know how they're going to cover, but it's probably going to take a lot. And there's really more to how I can go all about this, the way that they're handling this, but it's brutal. And there's a drive in deep left field by Kyle Higashioka. That'll be a home run. And it'll now make it a 2-0 Yankees lead.
Watch out, Michael K. Here comes Hank Indictor, next fucking play-by-play guy of the New York Yankees. That is great. I'm gonna need more. I'm gonna need more Yankees home runs tonight for as long as this interview goes on. Speaking of the Yankees, man, that's a great transition. Let's talk about your New York Yankees, because you mentioned before we started the interview, it's been an up and down year for the Bronx Bombers. What is the feeling in New York right now? Aaron Boone has been on the hot seat, I would say, all year. A lot of people not really happy with his performance and some decisions he's made for the guys in the pinstripes. I know a lot of injuries as well. You guys have been one of the most injured teams in baseball the past 2 or 3 years, it feels like. So just what's the thoughts about the Yankees right now? Is there still time to salvage this season? Is it kind of gone for?
I think there might somewhat be still a bit of time to salvage the season, but excuse me. I don't think it's going to be easier to do this year than in years past, because you look at the competition that the Yankees, the Red Sox and the Red Sox are a tougher team than we thought. I knew the Red Sox were going to improve. They always, if you've noticed the pattern with the Red Sox, they always have that 1 year where they tank, and then all of a sudden they just start to play better, and then they end up becoming a machine. And I don't know if they're going to be a legit contender for a World Series this year, but given the work that Chaim Bloom has done to retool that team over the course of a few years after the Mookie Betts trade, I think they're really headed in the right direction. And I could easily see them being maybe a wild card contender come the end of the season. The Blue Jays have kind of been treading water, been at or above 500 a little bit. They were the team I really thought the Yankees were going to be the biggest threat to the Yankees for the division, if I'm going to be honest. And in fairness, they still can make a lot of noise. All they really need to do right now is they need to get maybe another pitcher or two, and then once George Springer comes back, George Springer. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a brain fart.
He is on the Blue Jays now. That is weird.
Yes, once George Springer ends up becoming healthy, the lineup's going to be even more dangerous than it already is. I mean, look, you've got an MVP in that lineup. Vlad Guerrero's hitting around 340. He's the league leader in home runs, and I'm pretty sure he's also leading the league in RBIs. Pretty close to a Triple Crown season right there, and it's only June. So who knows what damage he can do if he doesn't get into a horrific slump. I think the Blue Jays are very dangerous, and Vlad's a guy whose potential I think we pretty much saw over the course of a few years, but now we're really starting to see it, and he's emerging into a true superstar right before our eyes. And, Bo Bichette's a pretty good player in that lineup too, so don't count him out. And then, of course, I got to mention the Tampa Bay Rays, and I know they've been in a bit of a slump, but even when the Rays lose a lot of guys, they always seem to find a way to be in the mix for that division. Like, I clearly underestimated them before the season. I was worried for them losing Snell and one of their better relief pitchers. I thought and Charlie Morton too would probably come back to hurt them. But then you look at their lineup, like you still got Austin Meadows, who's a good hitter. Kevin Kiermaier's pretty much been one of the better fielders in the league, and he's a Yankee killer too, if you've seen. And not to mention Randy Arozarena. I was worried that he was probably going to get into a bit of a slump, but he's another guy who you never know when he can get it going. So, like, when you really come down to it, it's going to be a really tough battle for the Yankees. Like, and it's frustrating because they have the talent in the lineup. Like, they have guys who can mash and hit home runs, but the problem is the Yankees just cannot seem to get out of their own way. They're not a fundamentally sound team. Like, as much as they love to go for the home runs, their big problem isn't so much that they haven't been able to hit. The big problem is that they have had trouble driving in runners home. Like, the runners in scoring position has been a problem for the Yankees for the past 4 or 5 years. So this isn't exactly a Johnny come lately that I'm telling you about right now. And then as far as pitching goes, yeah, you have Gerrit Cole, who's great, but like, other than Gerrit Cole, like, not everyone in that rotation is necessarily a stable 2 or 3 guy. Jordan Montgomery will be all right at times. Corey Kluber, when healthy, was good, but now he's gone until maybe July or August. And so that's a big blow. And then Domingo Germán is capable. He has good stuff. And now you're probably not even going to have Luis Severino back. So they took risk when building the pitching. And, I don't know if this team is going to necessarily compete. I mean, and even if they get into the playoffs, like, that wild card game is a crapshoot. Like, granted, you have a Gerrit Cole, maybe you win that game, but every other round, they're probably going to struggle with hitting. Like, it's the same thing every year. Like, you get guys on base.
You sound like my fucking Cardinal fan friends. It's the same fucking thing every fucking year. Yeah.
I know. Like, we literally were talking about this on Hitting for the Cycle. Like, when you were talking about some of the problems with the Cardinals, it reminded me of some of the complaints that I have about the Yankees. Like, they seem to go the wrong approach, and that is like trying to hit for the fences, launch angle, and analytics, when really it should be all about trying to get the guys in. And the other problems with the Yankees,
just get on base.
Yeah,
dude.
get on base.
That's what baseball has become, and it's what the articles I was reading when I was kind of preparing for this. They were like, baseball. Why they made this rule is they're trying to get ahead of it before it's just a three option situation, where it's home run, strikeout, or walk. Like we already said, which it's already gotten to that point. They're trying to prevent something that's already happening. They use sabermetrics and all these fucking analytics, but it's at the end of the day, if you watch a fucking baseball game, you're not going to see anybody laying down a bunt. You're not going to see anybody not many people at this point hitting for average. Like, everybody is trying to hit a fucking home run or bust because it's because of these numbers. Say, oh, well, we're having X amount % more success if this guy tries to hit a home run rather just try to get on base, which at the end of the day, you get runners on base, that equals runs. And that it's just, I don't know. I sound like old man yelling at cloud right now, like old baseball head. But like, at a certain point, like, when are these fucking teams going to realize that it's like if you live and die by the home run, you're going to lose a lot more games than you win, unless you just have insane talent and somebody that's going to hit a fucking home run every game.
And no, that's not old man yelling at clouds. You have no idea how many people in my own fan base agree with that. Like, here's the thing. And you mentioned them getting on base. Do you want to know another problem that they've been having this year? They have led the league in most outs when advancing to bases. They like 28 or pretty close to 30 outs with guy trying to advance to third. That's not fundamentally sound baseball. And do you want to know how many the second most team has? Like, 16. The Yankees have like made a whole game's worth of outs on the bases. That's not fundamentally sound baseball. Like, I'm watching games where I see a ground ball hit right to the shortstop, and I see Gary, like an idiot, try to go to third, and he gets thrown out easily. And that's one of the main reasons why I've been shitting on Gary Sanchez for like the past couple years. Like, I know he's got the talent, but when I see him doing stuff like have trouble like pitch framing, not always going after a pass ball, and then getting thrown out at third when the ball's hit right in front of you, like, it's one of those things that reminds me why I can't get too excited or too optimistic about the Yankees' chances. Every single year is the same. And make no mistake, I love this team. I want them to prove me wrong and like start magically playing better come October and have things change. But obviously, I know that's wishful thinking on my part. I know that's probably not going to happen. And I know they've been winning 5 out of 6 games, but like, when you look at the games they won in Oakland, they won, or not in Oakland, at Yankee Stadium, they won one game where they came back 4-1 down and won 7-4. And then you had the third game they won was 2-1. And let's face it, if Aroldis Chapman didn't get bailed out by a triple play at the end of the game, we'd probably lose that series because he was pretty wild. He only threw 2 strikes, including that triple play out to end the game. Like, I cannot, like, honestly, I think we stole that third game against Oakland. And I still can't believe we swept Toronto, because Toronto is a team that, like, whether they've been good or bad for so many years, they've been giving us trouble, especially considering it's a road game. Now, I get it, it's in Buffalo, but still, they gave us a hard time in Buffalo last year. So, yeah, they're not a fundamentally sound game. The reason that the Yankees won so much in the 90s, like, people forget this, but when the Yankees had those dynasties in, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, they didn't rely on the home run. That didn't happen until after those teams got old and after they lost the 2001 World Series, when they started getting the likes of a Jason Giambi and Alex Rodriguez or Bobby Abreu, you name it. That was when the Yankees were all about like getting the guy in, doing whatever it takes to win. Now it's like more home run or nothing. The only one year where like their home run hitting really helped them was maybe 2009, when you had a loaded lineup of Teixeira, Cano, A-Rod, and like, I think that was really the one year A-Rod was really relaxed in the postseason, because I think maybe that was when he had that first steroid scandal and when he was like, oh, okay, maybe the pressure isn't as big, and he just started to relax. But then after that, it was like, oh boy, they're back to their old ways of like struggling to hit. And then you look at what's happened in 2019 and 2020. Again, there have been years where they can mashing home runs, like them leading the league in home runs might work in the regular season, like as we've seen in years past. Like, when you're up against like teams with better pitching, that's where it starts to hurt. I don't want to sound like I'm anti-home run. I fucking love like long balls. Oh, no, home runs are great. I love watching a fucking dong shot or fucking dick bomb that goes like 450 feet. Like, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. But also, like, if you know, like, you have to be able to hit something else. You know what I mean? What I wanted, a couple things. You mentioned Kevin Kiermaier. Shout out Kiermaier. He went to Parkland College, which is in Champaign, where I am at right now. Cobras. Randy Arozarena, former Cardinal, still kicking myself. The Cardinals let him go. And then that triple play you were talking about. New York turned the first 1-3-6-2-5-6 triple play in Major League history on Thursday against the Blue Jays, and it was in the 9th inning to win the game. That was the one in the 9th inning that we had against the one in the 9th inning to win the game was against Oakland. That was, I think, earlier in the game. Never mind. Ignore what I said. They were still the first 1-3-6-2-5. Well, no, don't say sorry. You corrected me because I wasn't right. But it was still the first 1-3-6-2-5-6 triple play in Major League history. Didn't end the game, but they had like 2 triple plays in what, a week? Yes, you're correct. That's okay. I'm finally correct about something. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the Cardinals, because we were super hot. When I appeared on your show, we were in first place. I was feeling okay. Now we're slumping. You were talking about the Yankees being frustrating. One thing that's frustrating as hell about the Cardinals is the bullpen seems to just walk everybody. They have like the highest walk rate in the major leagues right now, if I'm not mistaken. And if it's still on pace to break a record, I think I might cry, but I should have looked that up. No, you were pretty right. I looked that
What?
thing up when you were on my show, and
All right.
I think we pretty much touched upon that too.
Like what the hell do the Cardinals need to do to turn it around? Like we've had some injuries, like Tyler O'Neill's been hurt, Paul DeYoung has missed some time. But I mean, Nolan Arenado's had a pretty great year, but our rotation is really banged up. You know, Jack Flaherty's hurt. The bullpen has had their struggles. A lot of people have at least Cardinal fans are wanting us to try to trade for Max Scherzer at the deadline. Do you think that is a realistic option for the Cardinals? Do you think they could get Scherzer in St. Louis?
Here's my issue with that. Is your farm system really deep enough to where you have the means to make such a trade? Like, make no mistake. In theory, I know that would help you guys, but
yeah.
I just don't know if they necessarily have the means to make the trade. And I know Scherzer would probably love to pitch back in his hometown for the team he grew up rooting for. But even if you get Scherzer, it doesn't
solve every problem. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It does. It would be really cool because, he's a Missouri guy, like you said, in his hometown. But you said, is your farm system deep? I think what we'd have to give up for him is a guy like Nolan Gorman, who is third base, probably one of our top prospects in the system right now, which when you think about it, the Nationals need a third baseman. Gorman fills a need there, and we have Arenado there, who realistically, what's he, 31, 30? He can probably he's going to be in St. Louis for at least I would say 4 or 5 years. Right. You could probably find another guy in the draft. Gorman is supposed to be very, very good and somebody who I really look forward to seeing in a Cardinal uniform. But if it means you can bring in a guy like Scherzer, I think you have to pull the trigger on it. Even if you do have to say Scherzer's on the wrong side of 30. He's obviously not in the prime of his career. But what he could potentially bring to this fucking staff is stability, is somebody, a veteran presence, along with Adam Wainwright, but somebody that's not fucking 40 years old, that you can rely on to bring you quality starts consistently, not have, every other one we can expect, just hit my mic. And not every other start, we can expect fucking five earned runs or something like that, I don't know, but you made the good point. It doesn't solve the outfield. What I'll say about our outfield is we gave up Rosarena, we gave up Adolis Garcia, we gave you guys Luke Voigt, but at the end of the day, I think that kind of works because, we have Paul Goldschmidt, who is kind of underperforming this year for the Cardinals, which is frustrating, but it just kind of sucks because, last month when we talked, on hitting for the cycle, we were in first place. And now I think we're barely 500 if we even are that.
I was warning you that the foundations were starting to crack.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wasn't super confident in us to stay at the top, but it's just kind of
you had a whole rant session too.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's how are we supposed to stay excited about this team? Yeah. It's they are getting to the point where I almost don't even care anymore, Hank, where it's just I'm not watching every single game. I'm not living and dying with the Cardinals like I used to. I'm definitely still paying attention to what's going on. I'm definitely still watching games, but I can't fucking do it to myself anymore if Mozeliak in this front office aren't going to do anything. And I can ask you all I want if you think they could bring in Scherzer, but are they actually going to do it? Probably fucking not. No. They'll probably make no moves, and then Mozeliak will have a press conference a couple days after the deadline talking about how happy he is with the guys he has right now. So
sounds like my GM too.
Yeah, no sense. We got some similarities here, brother. So let's get this closed out. I want to get your final thoughts on this whole foreign substance sticky situation. Do you think this is a rule that is going to be in place permanently? Do we get any adjustments to the rule? Is anything going to be lifted? Is this just a 1-year type of thing, a test, or going through next year? Do you think this is going to be a thing?
There's a lot of ways to really go about it. I think maybe certain parts of the rule will stay. excuse me again. Like, I highly doubt that spider tack is really going to be like allowed in years past, because I think we established how sticky that stuff really is and how powerful it really could be. So I think at the very least, you're probably not going to see spider tack being legal again. With that being said, sunscreen and rosin bags, I think they'll probably bring that back. I just think, again, if you really look at the whole surface of it and really read between the lines, it really has more to do with like the main boss making up a rule and trying to use his ego, but also making up a little bit of stuff as he's going along. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And I'm just going to give you a minute or however long you need just to get out any frustrations you have about Rob Manfred. This is your time. Just completely roast that motherfucker.
Oh my gosh, I can't stand him. I cannot stand that guy. Like, 90% of what he's done to the game has hurt it more than he has helped it. Like, okay, you want to have a universal DH? Fine. I got no issue with that. I don't find it as fun to see pitchers batting as most National League fans do. Andy, no offense. I don't know if you probably agree with me or not about that, but like, I'm
kind of indifferent. Like, sometimes I like the strategy of it and kind of having to plan around it in the later innings. But at the same time, it's like you mentioned it, like the Yankees struggle getting runners on base. Imagine them having fucking runners on second and third, and Kluber or Gerrit Cole comes up to the plate with 2 outs, okay, you're like, okay, this inning's over.
Let me give you my full aspect on that rule. Like, if you want to have like a DH or not, that's fine if you want to have a universal DH. But if you want to let pitchers like get the option of whether they can hit or not, or give managers the option, totally fair. My whole problem with the whole rule is, why do you have one set of rules for the AL and the other set of rules for the NL? Like, how does that make sense?
Right.
But that's besides the point.
Because all I want to add here is, we talked about earlier, is consistency and having a fair playing field. This lines up with it exactly.
Exactly. My point exactly. But other stuff that he's changed, like the way he handled like the 2020 season, like, I'm still watching even through all the shenanigans that happened with like the fights leading up to 2020, which it wasn't even about like COVID-19. It was really all about ego and trying to like make money and not lose money and whatnot. And the seven inning doubleheaders, extra innings with the runner on second. Okay, it does make the game somewhat successful, but I think it's kind of bush league, and I feel like it's better to like earn those wins the same way in the 10th inning as you would innings 1 through 9. So like having a runner on second, I think kind of ruins the climax. And not to mention you have him try to fix up the baseballs one way or another. Like, why? Like, why would you juice the baseballs? And if we weren't juicing the baseballs and then maybe making them even more helpful for pitchers, then why are you trying to like change things now? Like, if you really wanted a good problem solver, just use a normal fucking baseball. Don't change the baseball. Like, I don't get it. And then, like I said, and then I could get into the way he's handled, like, you know, the Astros and whatnot with their cheating. I mean, I'm not gonna like try to be that salty Yankee fan that's like frustrated despite my shirt that's underneath. But,
yeah, despite your shirt.
Despite my shirt underneath, I'm not gonna like try to be that salty Yankee fan. But at the same time, when you have them winning the World Series and using that whole thing at their home stadium the way they've done it, and when you have like them being able to look at things in game, I'm sorry, that's worse than steroids in my honest opinion. Like, that's worse because you can literally look at stuff during the game and what weaknesses and advantages that pitchers have. Like, it's a really unfair advantage, and it's in a way it's like card counting in a casino if you think about it. And not to mention, like, there's the fact that like he just tried to like sweep it under the rug, and he just tried to let them just get away with their whole shenanigans. And again, he's just a commissioner that makes things up as he goes along. That's really all I have to say about him. He's not done a great job, and as much as I want to say they should fire him, at the same time, we unfortunately know all too well that like even though like he's the commissioner, he works for the owners too.
Yeah.
And you can look at other owners in years past who have like pretty much been fired for doing their job and trying to fix the game and not appeasing owners. So at the end of the day, as much as I want to blame Manfred, and rightfully so, it's not really the game, it's the whole system.
I like that. That's a great point, Hank. Let me ask you this, and I don't know if this is going to trigger you or this is going to get you on another 20-minute rant. Who is the worst commissioner, Rob Manfred or Gary Bettman?
Oh, Manfred, without a doubt. I mean, don't get me wrong. Bettman's is no saint either. I'm not gonna let him completely off the hook. Bettman had 3 lockouts on his watch, but at least with Bettman, I'll give him this. The way he handled the NHL and getting them back after COVID-19 happened, he's done some pretty good things lately that have made me feel a little bit better, but the way that Manfred's handled a lot of stuff, and not to mention, that fucker just looks like a James Bond villain.
Yes, sir. Hank, let's get out of here. But before we do, plug Hitting for the Cycle. Tell us where we can find it, when you go live, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours, my friend.
Awesome. So Hitting for the Cycle, we are live pretty much every Thursday at 7 p.m. You can find us on Facebook Live. You can also find us on like everywhere you can find your podcast through Anchor, SoundCloud, whatnot. And not to mention, you can also find us on YouTube. Subscribe to us at Review and Preview Sports. Hitting for the Cycle on Thursday. Pretty much I'll spend like at least about an hour talking. I cover pretty much a lot of big things. I cover the Yankees and the Mets, of course, but I also cover like the big news that goes around MLB like each week. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Padres-Dodgers series, which I'll probably cover again after this week because they've got another big series coming up. And then I've also pretty much talked a little bit in depth about Shohei Ohtani and his crazy skills of being able to hit and pitch. He's been fun. And yeah, like basically you name it. I cover a lot of big news that goes around MLB.
Quickly, I want to talk about Shohei Ohtani. I know we were about to close this out, but just like his week last week, it was like,
oh my gosh,
2 home runs, home run, 6 innings pitched, like no earned runs, however many strikeouts, home run, home run, home run. How long is he going to be able to sustain that? And if he continues on that, will he end his career as the best baseball player of all time?
Oh my gosh, if he does, probably. I hope to see him go longer, but then again, who knows? I think who knows? Maybe he goes the route Babe Ruth does, and maybe he stops pitching and focuses on hitting, but that's not something I really want to think about. I want to just enjoy him in the moment as we're getting him, because
that's why I like you, Hank.
It's really rare that you see guys who can like hit and pitch and have multiple skills at once. So I'm really one that's enjoying the moment. How long it goes, only time will tell. That's right. The only way I can really answer that question.
Do you think this will be a trend we see more often in Major League Baseball, is more two-way guys?
Maybe, but again, that takes an awful lot of skill, so who knows? I think there's a reason that baseball players like to focus on hitting more so than pitching and vice versa. So
right.
There's a reason why I like to think of Shohei Ohtani as a unicorn in that aspect.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 66 of the Brew Party podcast. I want to thank you once again for joining us. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at The Brew Party. We are also on Instagram at The Brew Party. We're on Facebook at The Brew Party Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/The Brew Party. Make sure you follow Hank. He is on Twitter at Ranger Hanky, 96? Is that right?
You got it. I don't really tweet too much stuff, but like every now and then I'll say something really funny, and I tweet a lot of like highlights on it. I'm not as active on Twitter as I should be, but I'll also slowly emerge from my shell and make some random baseball points and stuff about the Yanks, you know?
Even if you're not on Twitter, follow the show. Hitting for the Cycle is one of the best baseball shows on the internet. You can always find me in the comments on Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. At Review and Preview Sports on Facebook is where you can find that, and all those other spots Hank mentioned earlier. This is the Brew Party podcast, episode 66, Spider Tack with Hank Indictor from Review and Preview Sports. Check me out this week. I'm going to be joining Sam Cardona on the Girl Who Talks Sports podcast. I am, I guess, now officially just her backup guest. Whenever anything else falls through, just hit me up and I'll be there.
May or may not be on my show this week too. Spoiler
alert. Spoiler alert. We got a double dose of the Girl Who Talks Sports. Love all this collaboration that we are all able to do. Go Cardinals. Go Yankees. We're out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night, weekend, day, whenever you're watching this. I don't give a shit. Like I've said before, I just thank you for tuning in. This is the Brew Party.